This is the time of year when a lot of people reconnect with families. It can be joyful, but stressful as well. Over the past year, a lot of the people that I interviewed were very candid about the way family dynamics affected them and talked about the impact their parents had on their careers.
I grew up feeling so embarrassed and ashamed of my parents' accent because it was something that was so mocked here in Canada and in the West in general. And then I remember turning like 21 and something just did like a full 180 in my head, and I was like, wait a minute, how can I be embarrassed of this thing when it's the only thing my parents have left of home? And that thought just, it changed everything for me, and then this poem was born.
I think about the way my father pulled the family out of poverty without knowing what a vowel was. And my mother raised 4 children without being able to construct a perfect sentence in English.
So when I started to really reflect on the sacrifices that my parents had made, and so many of them, and so that we could have a life, so that I could have the chance to go to university. And I was moved by it to the point of tears, you know, and this is the story of so many immigrants, and especially so many of the ones that I grew up around. So I really wanted to write this poem as a love letter to them.
They turned a suitcase full of clothes into a life and regular paychecks to make sure that the children of immigrants wouldn't hate them for being the children of immigrants.
You know, my mom still doesn't speak English, and it is something that she's so ashamed about. And I was thinking about how, especially as my mom, she was a homemaker. And I often reflect on what that means for an immigrant woman to be between these 4 walls and that country, this new home, or what's supposed to feel like home, will never see her. But what she's made of her life, regardless of whether it's invisible or not, is art of its own.
My dad, for me, was as much a cautionary tale as a sort of inspiration. No, not as much. I'll say let's go 70 cautionary, 30 inspired, inspiring. Because he was my father was a garbage fire. I never once saw my father sober. I have no idea what that looks like, you know, because he was frigged from about 11 a.m. every single day. And he's popping a lot of pills and still blowing rails and all this stuff, like ugly shit. So the good part of that is when you grow up in the third act of Goodfellas, when it's just paranoia and clammy, pallid skin and irritability and the hard drugs lose their kind of sex, their allure, right? So I, to this day, have never tried cocaine. I've never tried half of the shit my dad did because out of either fear of being him, but also just it never seemed appealing. He also is, to his credit, he's part of why I'm still in this kind of world, because he would rent a movie every Friday and Saturday night. And I'd wake up early the next morning, Saturday morning and Sunday morning, and if the tape was still in the VCR, that meant that, oh, mom and dad think it's okay for me to watch. If it was back in this case, it was sort of too racy for me. So this meant that dad fed me movies, and often with a sort of 101 course before it of why this movie is good, why he liked it, his memory seeing it the first time. My father really just wanted me to have a thing I cared about, and his dad never went to a single one of his hockey games. The entire time he played hockey. And so he was he had it in his mind that no matter what, I'm not going to be that. And so if my kid likes movies, I'm going to lean into that. So he bought me movie books every single Christmas, he always just bought me books about movies. Sometimes it was the Leonard Maltin Guide. Sometimes it was literally the in-house like buyer's catalog that a video store would have when there was come time for them to order next month's movies. And he would just be like, what can I give you for that? Because my kid will read it.
It's funny, you know, when you're a kid, most things around you up to a certain age are your norm, and so you feel like that is the norm. But from about 8 years old, I really started to recognize that, okay, none of my other friends at school are in the bar singing in front of, you know, drunk people at midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, and I started to feel like I was living two lives already from very early on.
You know, they weren't taking you to a bar at midnight to sing out of any kind of neglect. It was the opposite of that. They were giving you a stage
Right.
to sing on.
To them, this was my development opportunity. Now, if they had been different, I may have only developed my talent, first of all, less intensely, and much later. So by the time I got to Nashville, I was quite seasoned already as a songwriter, as a live performer. My whole concept of how I saw myself was pretty clear already.
Yeah.
It's not like I got to Nashville and I needed to be developed. I needed to be supported with what I had already spent all of my life from childhood developing.
Speaking of your book, let's talk about chapter 3.
Okay.
Which was hard to read. It's a searing account of what your parents, as teenagers, I guess, went through in the death camps, the Nazi death camps. And I've been thinking about it a lot since I read it. What impact do you hope that has on people?
Okay, so one of the things I said to my book agent when I finally did acquiesce and agree to do a memoir was that I had to have a chapter about my parents' experiences, because I felt the personality I am, the way I think, the way I look at the world, was formed, obviously like everyone else, formed by your childhood experiences. But I grew up listening to these stories that affected me very much. And so that was one reason I was insisting on doing a chapter about their lives. Another reason was I wanted to pay homage to my mother, who I was very close with. But the third is that we're living in such dangerous times, and there's so much about that period and what happened to my family that is being forgotten or rewritten. And I felt I just wanted to remind people that this happened and there were witnesses to it. So for all those reasons, I felt it important to include him in my history.
Welcome back. Let's continue with our look back on some of our Sunday interviews and reflections on family.
Growing up, my dad played, in Edmonton for, a couple of years. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but me watching him growing up, it was amazing. Yeah, I just try to replicate what I see, and I try to put in my game. Even at a young age, playing football was just, for me, for fun. It was just me being myself, expressing myself, being who I am, and just enjoying the game.
Your parents, their incredible story of being refugees, coming to Canada, having to work really long hours, and you put in a position, as I understand it, to help take care of your siblings at home.
Yeah, growing up, my parents, they did each work 2 jobs each, trying to provide for the family. I had a little brother and a little sister. Yeah, I mean, changing diapers at the age of, I think, 9, 10 wasn't easy. Myself, I'm a kid as well, so. And once I step on the football pitch, I forget about all that. I just go out there, have fun, just enjoy in every moment that I have to play the sport.
Tell me the Maggie McNeil story. First in the pool, when you first knew that you were fast.
Well, I guess going back to the beginning, I got into swimming because my mom, who's a physician, we moved into a house that had a pool. So she was very worried about my sister and I just with water safety. So that's kind of where we started. And I sort of mom and taught lessons with her. And I wouldn't be in a sport if it wasn't for her. And she and my dad have been around all the way. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. But I started competing when I was 8. And I think probably the first time I took it seriously and thought, oh, I could go to the Olympics. I mean, everyone wants to go to the Olympics when they're a kid. And I mean, I never kind of thought that would actually happen, probably until I made my first junior national team at 15, and then even more so, I think, at Worlds in 2019. My parents are pretty naive about the sport, and it was never about, oh, they made me get up for practice, but it was if I wanted to, or if I was too tired or had an exam, they never pressured me to. So if they were more hard on me, I don't think I would be able to score as long as I am. But I'm just enjoying the ride, and I don't think any of us thought he would get to this point.
I saw a clip, I think it's from a podcast, of an interview you did.
And I love to get hit in a fight, guys. I know we're talking about fighting a lot, but I love to get hit in a fight as long as I won.
You said you like getting punched.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds weird to me.
Yeah, to most people. And I grew up with 2 brothers and a pretty physical dad. And I mean, we wrestled. We're big WWF wrestling fans, and we threw each other around and kind of smacked each other around. And that's just the way I was brought up. So I think everyone, you get hit once in a while, it keeps you honest. So the most important thing in the fight for me was always winning. I didn't really care about, never really worried about getting hurt or getting hit. It's like I just wanted to win, because there's so much momentum that comes from winning a fight in an NHL hockey game for your team, and it affects the game, right? But it's nice to get hit once in a while and have like a little shiner coming out of it. And then the next day I'm dropping my son off at Montessori school and I have a big black eye. Like, that was always kind of a badge of honor for me.
You talk about your parents a lot, about the inspiration they have been for you, the leadership that they've shown you. So I want to show you a piece of video. You know it from an HBO documentary where you took the championship trophy to Africa and showed it to your parents.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for raising me the right way. I came from something. I came from something big.
God is behind you, son. You made me proud, son.
Thank you, son. Thank you. You'll be all right. You climb higher and higher and higher, Masai.
You said in the video you came from something big.
Yeah.
What was that?
My family, like my parents, my wife, my 3 kids born in Canada. It means the whole world. And my parents raised me the right way. Yeah, and it's respect, being honest. You treat people the way you want to be treated. Like, it doesn't matter where you are born in the world. Nowhere, it doesn't matter where you're born. You are allowed to dream. Yeah, you are. And mine started in my house. Yeah, mine started in my house. So that is big. Where I come from is big.
Let's return to our look back on the Sunday interviews and the impact of family.
My mom was complicated in a way because she had many different sides. She was very shy, but she was also incredibly independent and like super brave and could do anything she wanted. She liked things that were a little bit odd and weird, which was lucky for me because I was both. And and she just, let's not be kidding was one of, she had many little catchphrases, but that was one she would say that was how she would let you know that she sort of saw the full picture. If I had a friend in junior high who was a bit of a badass, and, I would be like, oh, can I hang out with so-and-so? And she'd be like, yeah, but don't go to the mall. with him because, let's not be kidding. And then you're like, oh yeah, right, she knows he steals.
Yeah.
She would just let you know that she knew the lay of the land, but she wasn't really like a smack talker, so she would just kind of leave it there.
Let's talk about Son of a Critch. First of all, the book, so good. What did I ask you? Did you write it yourself?
You did ask me if I had ghostwritten like Prince Harry, but no, I did write it myself.
It is a fantastic book and has turned into a beautiful series. Like, it's poignant and it's funny.
4, 3. VOCM on the spot news at the liquor store where the scene is sobering.
There's so much to ask you about, but let me start with this. Your old family home has been recreated for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, scenes from your childhood, your family. What's it like to recreate all those scenes from your childhood?
It's really it's bizarre because it's my family home hasn't been there since like the mid '90s, right? Mom and Dad are no longer there, and I kind of sketched out what the house was like, and it had to be kind of small, and it was right next to this radio station. And our art department kind of did it pretty authentically. And then I had my dad's kind of clothes he wore, and I showed them pictures, and they're like, okay, we got similar fabric, and we've recreated his outfits. I'm like, well, I'm not Churchill. Like, nobody's gonna know, it's not like, oh, that's not what was worn during the Blitz. So I was like, well, but it's so strange. I'm wearing my dad used to wear this red VOCM jacket to work as part of the news team. They all wore red jackets, and so I had Dad's jacket, and I had his gold patches on that, and I'm wearing a recreation, but with Dad's actual buttons and patches on it. So sometimes I'll be sitting at the kitchen table, and over here is furniture that was actually in our dining room growing up. The radio on the counter is the one from my childhood home, because I kept a bunch of this stuff. And I'll look down at myself, and peripheral vision, I'm home, and I'm in my father's body, and I think, what the hell have you done, you madman? It's kind of strange. Action!
Oh, hell of an article here about the feds. Scissors?
It can be melancholy at times, because you miss them and stuff like that. But then I'll hear, Malcolm and Benjamin laughing or whatever, and I realize they're gone, the house is gone, we have this other shell of a place, and now we're filling it up with new memories, and it moves on. And that's a big theme of the show, onwards. You keep going forward.
Mike Critch live on the scene at Colman's Grocery in St. John.
So Mike Critch, famous newsman, you must have thought about this. What would he be thinking of this program, your portrayal of him?
I think Dad would be equal parts delighted and mortified, right? He would, did you had to make it so small? Did you had to talk about that? The house, your mother could be dressed a little nicer, hey? And why did you say I couldn't get a raise? But he'd be going around in St. John saying, did you see the kids' show last night? Pretty good, huh? And I've been making fun of Dad. I mean, I first made fun of Dad when I was 15, when I rented out a local theater called the LSPU Hall, Longshoremen's Protective Union. And I wore that Dad's red jacket and did an impression of Dad, and the audience loved it. And I've been doing the same thing since I was 15. And you make fun of your parents, you make fun of your teachers. I'm still doing that. And then, at some point, the principal of the school becomes the prime minister. So it's always just been, I'm doing the same thing I was doing when I was 15, just making fun of the powerful people in my life.
You, as the child of immigrants, what impact did that have?
Huge impact. My parents worked opposite schedules. My mom would drop me off at like 5 in the morning at my grandparents' house, take care of me. She would go work at a cafeteria at a school, and then pick me up after school, and then get me dinner to help me with my homework, and then go back to work again at 6 o'clock. Then my dad, who was working all day, would come home at 6 o'clock and take care of me at night. I saw that struggle. My mom working 2 jobs as a server, my dad working at a metal fabrication shop. I've seen the growth. I saw the day my dad was able to, with another guy, leave and start their own business. I saw the day my mom opened up her own business, a flower shop in Forest Lawn. I've seen that growth. I've seen the Canadian dream. And I saw the value of hard work. Thank you.
And so you are living the classic immigrant son story by doing comedy. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But it's so great because I went to go work for my dad at that metal shop when I was 14.
Yeah.
I might be breaking some labor laws there, but I went to go work there. My dad always told me, Andrew, money is hard to make. You got to work really hard for it. And I realized that coming home, you know, dirtied up from the grease and the metal, my hands hurt, tired, and he did that every single day. And so I recognize the value of hard work now.
Let's finish with another heartwarming, I think, positive story, and it involves you being in Nashville and having a tough time. Maybe you were depressed.
Yeah.
And your mom and your sister getting on a plane to come down.
A car, actually.
A car. They drove down.
They drove
Wow,
down
even more
14. I know.
impressive.
They
That's
drove
a long
down.
drive.
They drove all night.
They come down to Nashville, and your mom, who cried when you came out, reached out to you in Nashville.
Yeah, it was me and my mom. We were, after I came out, we were fine. Like, it was a little bit tense, whatever, but like, we would still talk, but it was all very like polite, like small talk. Like, she never really asked me about my life or anything like that. It was kind of like, it was hard because I just felt like I was kind of being iced out a little bit. So when I moved down to Nashville, and I forget why, I think it was a new place, and I just kind of felt lonely and I was having a hard time. And my best friend called my mom and my sister and told them that I was having a tough time, and they got in the car and they drove down, and I did a drag dinner show every Thursday, and I walked out and my mom was sitting there. And I started laughing. I was like, what are you doing here? It was like crazy. And it was just a nice, easy weekend. It was fun, and she was herself again and just like talking to me and like asking me questions, and she was just kind of there for me, which was really nice for me. And then after she left, she wrote me a really beautiful letter, basically just apologizing for not really being there. And the most beautiful line for me was when she said, "I'm sorry I haven't loved you the way I should have," which really like was beautiful and something I think every kid wants to hear. Oh, and the front of the card, it was a card and it was a little boy and a little girl holding hands, and she wrote Brooke and Brock, which I thought that was the cutest thing ever. And she signed it, "Lots of love always." And after we had that moment together, I got this tattoo. And this is the actual handwriting from the letter. It says, "Lots of love always." And this is a daisy, which is her favorite flower.